Hi, welcome to Digital Transformation and our challenges for Land Registry, Land Registry I should say. We are a government department after all. No heckling in the front please, Jim. My name is Kim Bird and I am a Senior Delivery Manager for Land Registry. I have worked for the organisation now for, dare I say, 28 years. 20 years of that has been in our IT department. I joined our IT department as a software developer and progressed through to technical team lead at the time, and we then started off with the first Agile project in my team. That was very challenging. Moved into supplier management and contract management, and then came back to the solution group about 5-6 years ago now as senior delivery manager. And oh my God, had Agile teams changed during that time. So I've had a lot of learning about a lot of new roles. I'll hand you over to Jayne.
Hi, so I'm Jayne Walkie. I'm also a senior delivery manager at Land Registry in our DDAT function. I beat Kim for a number of years, so I've worked for Land Registry for 33 years this year. And I know I don't look it, but you know, I'm well preserved. I was left on the steps of the Land Registry as a baby, but yeah, I didn't start in IT. I started in the legal casework teams in the operations directorate of Land Registry, so had about 5 years there. So I've got sort of user experience, albeit there was not a computer in sight in those days, so it was all paper. But I was part of the very first sort of discovery of a computerized register. So it was taking our paper-based registers and changing them into a computerized format. I don't think it's digital, but it was a computerized format. Seems like a lifetime ago. Well, it was. So I moved into what is called DDAT now, but it was called Computer Services Division back in 1990. Started as an infrastructure engineer, moved to various different roles within DDAT, became a developer on assembler language, and did PL1, then did Delphi, and I've done a bit of Java. And then moved into technical training, and then moved into a delivery role. So I was a delivery team lead, and Kim and I both worked within a program that was called the conveyancing program, which was our first attempt at a digital transformation program for Land Registry. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Did various roles within the delivery function, was a resource manager, and then about 7 years ago got promoted to delivery manager and then senior delivery manager. So that brings us up to date with where we are now.
So as you can tell, we've been around the block a few times. So we want to make this a little bit interactive. So I'd like everybody in the room to stand up, please. Thank you. Now I'd like you to sit down if you had never heard of Land Registry before this session. Ooh, I am impressed. Okay, so please sit down if you have never interacted directly with Land Registry. Now please sit down if you're a Land Registry employee. Thank you. So there's quite a few of you standing, actually. That surprised me, as I was not expecting so many people to be standing. So obviously you've now interacted with Land Registry. Please sit down if you have found it really difficult to interact with the Land Registry. Please sit down if you have interacted with Land Registry for business purposes. So those of you remaining standing, have you used Land Registry for citizen-based services? You have. More than I expected, so that's quite a good thing to know, actually.
Can I ask what services have you used? Do you know? Right. So the find property information service.
Have you ever had to lodge applications with Land Registry, or is it just finding out information? Maybe I'll ask that question. Sit down if you've ever had to lodge, if you're just finding information.
Right.
Nah,
that's more what we expected.
That's more what we expected and brings us back to our point. So there is more of you that actually understand a bit about Land Registry than what we thought, but we thought we'd just give you a little bit of a background on what our business is about, really. So we were founded on the 15th of October 1862. Now, I have not worked for the Land Registry that long, so and neither is Jayne. So, but between us, we probably make up those years. We currently have around 5,000 staff, and that is based across 14 offices. Our IT department is based in Plymouth, and we have around, I think it's about 500 staff now in our IT department in Plymouth. It's one of the largest IT departments in the southwest. We have a head office in Croydon, so we are quite spread across the country, across England and Wales, I should say. We only service England and Wales. There is a Register of Scotland. So what do? Well, we register the ownership of land and property in England and Wales, and it is important that we keep and maintain the land register. We have around 23 million titles, and that is still climbing, and we need to ensure that they're well documented and maintained. Once a piece of land has been registered, we need to record any changes that affect that land. So we need to make sure that, as property owners, that your rights are guaranteed, your charges on the register, your mortgage that is, and any rights that affect your register or inhibits it. Currently, we have around 85% of England and Wales being registered, and we are committed to getting that up to 100%. So we're currently working on looking at what we can do in our services to automate as much as possible and get as much, the remaining 15% of land registered, so that we have a complete, comprehensive, fully digitised register.
So why is HMLR embarking on a digital transformation program? Probably from Kim and my point of view, it's more of a digital evolution, but the business as a whole likes to call it digital transformation. But our ambition as a land registry is to become the world's leading land registry for speed, simplicity, and an open approach to data. So that's our mission statement. So in order to do this, we've set up a number of programs of work. Programs has a anti-agile sort of connotation to it, but we'll deal with that challenge later in the presentation. But we have a number of programs. The digital program is one of them. I'm the senior delivery person for that. And the data program is another. Kim is the delivery person for that. We also have a customer program, which is looking at services we offer to our customer segments. And again, we'll go through some of those customer segments later. We have something called a Brilliant by Design program, which is how do you build a operational function. So this is the casework function that is sort of built on more lean principles. So that's quite interesting. So it's not IT, it's people and processes. So there is a technology program which is looking at how do we modernise our IT estate. And there is a service improve program, which is how do we improve our existing services. So we'll touch on some of those again later. So what is digital transformation? People talk about it, but I don't know if anybody really knows what it means. Has anybody in the room got a brilliant definition for digital transformation? Yes. Pretty much. Yeah. Anybody else? Customer first. So as you can see, it means different things to different people. We have a definition or a quote from a book called Digital Transformation at Scale, Why the Strategy is Delivery. If any of you are familiar with government digital services, you might recognise some of the names of the authors of that book. But they say digital transformation is about building a new type of organisation around internet-era principles, not adding technical complexity to try and fix analogue organisations. So, it's not just about technology. It is about changing the way that the organisation works as a whole, and that is a huge challenge. If it was just about technology, that would be a challenge in itself, but it's about how the organisation works as a whole. It's about how it runs itself in the background, so how the operations staff run, how finance runs, how projects run, how HR runs. It's a huge task, and it's not easy. And many private and public organisations struggle with it. And we've learnt a lot in our journey. So when we talk about the fact that we probably think it's more of an digital evolution than a transformation, it's because we started a digital transformation program back in the beginning of 2002 with our e-conveyancing program. And it was interesting to hear from the keynote this morning around what do you call it when you deliver something that people aren't ready for? And the sort of saying was, that's a failure. To probably in the eyes of the business, part of the e-conveyancing program was a failure. We were ahead of our time. We developed a system called Chain Matrix, which was allowed conveyancers to track the chain of a sale. So your sale, purchase, sale, purchase, sale, purchase. It allowed people to sign deeds digitally. It allowed people to lodge applications digitally. The technology and the solutions were brilliant. No take-up. So we closed it down because people just weren't ready for it. Digital signatures, too risky. So what we did do, though, it wasn't a total failure. We did build a conveyancer portal. So it did allow conveyancers and our lenders to lodge applications through a portal without using paper. It's fair to say we probably just took the paper forms and made them online. So not quite as digital as we want. But we did also build start building some citizen services. So we built a service called Map Search, which is still in existence today and people can use it. It won an award, Real IT Award. Woohoo. We built a service called Property Alert, still in service today, massive take-up, won an award. So we're not new to this digital thing. I think we won an award yesterday for something.
Yes, we did, EG Tech Awards.
Yeah.
That we were nominated for.
We were nominated for. We didn't know we were nominated, but we won it. So we weren't starting from scratch. So we're moving into what we want to do with this digital transformation program is sort of take it to its next level. More citizen services, re-looking at the services that we do, but more importantly, looking at our internal services. So our poor caseworkers have been using quite a lot of legacy tech for a long time. When they come in the morning, they have to open up about 25 different systems just to do their job. That's just, in this day and age, it's not good enough. So when we started this digital transformation, we set out some principles for the beginning of our journey. So this included Agile by default. So all of our delivery is Agile. We wanted to grow our digital capability within our organisation, and we committed to adhering to the GDS service standards, which we had to sort of commit to because we're a government department, so we didn't really have much choice. So we also came up with some goals that we wanted to. I'll talk about the goals. So one of them, so the first goal was to build a sustainable, modular and data technology estate. So that's dealing with our sort of legacy tech estate, which we'll go into a bit more later. We wanted to make our register more digital than it is at the moment. So our register has information about property, proprietors of the property, and then restrictions or rights that the property has, and whether any mortgage is on the property or any leases. At the moment, a lot of that is just free format text. So if you wanted to interrogate the register, it's really hard to do. And a lot of the wording in the register is very legal wording. So from a citizen point of view, if you wanted to look at your register and go, tell me whether I can park a caravan on my drive, you probably wouldn't be able to find that information unless you ordered a copy of the deed and then read the deed. And then you probably still wouldn't be able to find it, and you'd have to get a conveyancer to look at it and charge you lots of money. So we also want to make any data we hold a huge amount of data, as open and publishable as possible. Sounds easy, but been quite challenging from a charging point of view. And we want to do that through APIs. We want to continue to provide, protect ownership and interest in land and property, because that's what we're here for. We have to guarantee title. And we wanted to be able to enable innovation and growth in the land and property market. So where we went wrong with e-conveyancing is we came up with our proposal and we tried to enforce it on them, whereas now we're trying to work with the market to try to stimulate some innovation there and almost encourage them to take control of where the conveyancing market goes and lender market in the future. So you might have heard about our digital street initiative. So if you haven't, if you Google it, you'll find lots about Digital Street. We also wanted to build on our Find Property Information service. So some of you said you've used that service. We want to start iterating on that and offering more information on there. And we want to make it easier for people to submit applications to us. So we're working on refreshing our business service and our business to customer service, our portal, but it's really hard for citizens to lodge applications with us. So that's why we asked the question at the beginning. And we want to improve the quality of our data. So as I said, lots of it is free format text. If you give it to a caseworker and they're trying to get through their quota for the day, sometimes typing mistakes happen. We have some really weird and wacky stuff in our database of things people have typed in. So we need to do a lot of that because we can't automate stuff if the systems can't read what's in there. And we want to make our casework systems more efficient for our internal staff, but we also want to make as many of the simple applications automated so that our staff can focus on the things that really need their legal expertise and not do admin tasks. And lastly, we want to grow our in-house digital capability and ways of working. So the programs are trying to deal with those goals, and there are challenges with those goals.
Yeah, so we are trying to achieve a lot of things, and I think it's fair to say our digital and data programs by themselves, without all the other programs, are extremely ambitious and challenging. So what we're going to talk about now is so just some of the challenges that we have faced and still continue to face. So as we've talked about, our users, our bulk users for Land Registry are on the left-hand side of this screen. So they're conveyancers, they're lenders, they're developers developing new build property, and they interact with us on a regular basis. On the right are our data consumers. So they're the researchers, the journalists, the small businesses that want to take our data and grow their businesses. So Zoopla take our data and they've made a very good business out of it. Rightmove use our data to grow their business. So that's the market on the right. The market that we really want to be tapping into is the ones in the middle. So the citizens, you guys that want to buy property, sell property, protect property. We want you to have the choice to be able to interact with Land Registry direct without having to go through solicitors. My aunt recently came to me and said, Kim, I want to sever my joint tenancy on my property. Can I just do it myself? And I said, oh, I'm sure you can. It's just a form you have to lodge. No, it's not that easy, because she has to provide legal identity. She has to fill in a massive form. She has to go to her ex-partner to get him to sign to say that he can transfer the deed over. It was so convoluted and so complicated that I said, and I would just advise you to go and see a solicitor, because it's not that simple or easy for you to be able to lodge that application yourself direct with Land Registry. And that is disappointing. So that's the sort of thing that we want to streamline and simplify so that people can lodge applications themselves. So as we found out from our quick survey at the beginning of the talk, quite a lot of you have actually heard from us, and I think that's encouraging, but I think we want to do more. Even in our professional users, they fall into lots of different categories, and they range from small conveyancers who are still getting to grip with technology and are quite happy with the status quo, right through to large conveyancers and lenders that are quite up to date with technology and want to work with us to grow their businesses and be able to automate again as much as possible. We spend a lot of time doing user research with all of our users. We have grown our user research department, and they're quite often on the road going out to all different markets and getting feedback, which is great, because we're starting to use that data to see what we can do to help simplify and automate our applications. What we're finding, though, is that the needs are so diverse. So how, as an organisation, do we satisfy all of those needs? As a government department, we do not want to be having to put small businesses out of business. So we have to make sure that the market is fair and open and competitive for all to use our services. And like I say, when there's so much diverse needs, it's really difficult to get the balance right. As Jayne said, to go some way to address this, we do have dedicated professional users service, business-to-business service, and now we are starting to look through our digital and data programs to start looking at how we can make better use of citizen offerings. So it's great that some of you already know that they're there, but we want to simplify and improve those services. I think for us, it's a challenge because of the diversity, but hey, nothing's insurmountable, right? So our next challenge
is technology. So we started to build IT probably back in the 70s. It's grown since then, but it's fair to say our legacy state is a spider's web of millions of different types of technology. Millions is probably a bit of an exaggeration, but quite a few. So we have assembler program systems, we have PL1, we have Delphi, now we have Python, and we've got all sorts of things. And we have about 3,000 systems that we're maintaining, microsystems, and trying to transform that whilst still providing the service that we do is a challenge, because we have users, we have people, we have speed of service targets that we have to meet. We can't disrupt it. So we have to balance the priorities for transformation with the business as usual state. We have invested very heavily in our architecture function, and we're focusing on building APIs which can abstract the logic from the database to allow us to switch more easily. We are heavily investing in reusable components, which makes delivery quicker, and it ensures consistency, but is quite challenging because you almost need to try to guess what those components will need to do in the future. So you have to put a mechanism in place to make sure that you can iterate and manage them going forward. We're taking the opportunity to leverage a cloud-first strategy. That doesn't mean cloud every time, but it means we think about whether there's a cloud offering that we could use to replace something on our mainframe, because we have a massive mainframe. This allows us to reduce the reliance on the mainframe and reduce our cost, but also allows us to look for best-of-breed solutions as well. But a caveat and a big beware: cloud does not mean free, as we have learnt. So you can download a lovely piece of cloud-free software, and it comes with a really hefty support package that you have to pay for. We're learning. That's what we're learning, and we're doing quite well. We've built a brand new what we call a shared technology platform, which is beginning to replace our mainframe, and we're moving services over to that.
So culture is always a big word, isn't it? So I'm not going to go. I think culture could be a presentation in its own right. But basically, we don't have time to discuss it all. But we're a 160-year organisation steeped in legal precedents and history, and we have to tackle everything from internal systems and the way we need our people to work through to finance and programme governance. And it all has to be adapted. And we're saying adapted because there is a tendency, and we have experienced that consultants arrive at Land Registry and just want to throw everything away. It's like, no, you're doing it all wrong. Do it our way, as the keynote speaker was alluding to earlier. It's like, no, start with the user need. And what they don't appreciate is we have learned a lot on our journey. Like I say, we tried conveyancing 15 plus years ago, and we learned a lot from that. And we have to preserve the best practices for the organisation. There are reasons why we are slightly different, slightly special, slightly unique, because we have that legal precedence that we have to adhere to. And ultimately, our key goal is to protect the integrity of our registers. So we don't want to throw it all away. We want to adapt, but I think there's a long way to go. We're trying to build principles to build our digital services and trying to instill those principles in other areas of our business. So, as I say, in our IT department, we've been using Agile principles now for several years, and that is now starting to grow seeds in other areas of our business. So our IT operations department are now looking at service management and how they can break that up and become more agile. And some of our casework teams are using the best practices from Agile. So they're having their stand-ups, they're planning their work, and they're tracking their progress. Our Agile adoption in software delivery, I think, is fairly mature, and yes, we can still learn, and we can still do better. But I think we are getting there. And like I say, our challenge now is how do we continue to grow that out to make our whole organisation adopt the Agile culture, and that's difficult. And I would think it's very fair to say is still very much work in progress. But we are working hard, and that's all I'm going to say on culture, because like I say, I could be here all day and I will run out of time. So I'll pass you over to Jayne.
One of those cultural challenges is our governance and funding and approvals model. Still a massive work in progress. We're still expected to write full-blown 5-year business cases, so I was quite interested to hear the keynote speech this morning mention that. Completely anti-agile, but we have to. Most of those business cases have to go to HM Treasury for approval, so as you can imagine, they need to be full economic cases and all the bells and whistles that goes with it. What we try to do is build an element of flexibility into the business cases to allow us to move things around, but it is a bit of a challenge. But what we have done internally, and what I think is probably a big win, is we've moved the business to funding teams rather than projects. So it's taken a long time, but we finally, we think, got there. When I say fund teams, what they've committed to is fund teams for a year, or a financial year, but that's better than nothing. So at least it gives a team certainty of what they're working on. It gives them a bit of flexibility. What we do is go back to the board at regular intervals to sort of present how the team's doing. And we have, on a number of occasions, stopped a team working because we're not getting the return on investment that we were expected. And it was quite interesting this morning, is like, how do you know to stop a team? It is really much, it's gut feel. It's gut feel, this isn't going anywhere, we're just not getting traction on it, and we have stopped teams. What we're really struggling with, though, is the concept of when you've finished developing your service, to get the business to realise that it still needs maintaining, it still needs loving and nurturing, but we're still working on that at the moment, so that's a challenge. What we've tried to do is do an element of sheep dip agile training right across the organisation. What we did it, and it was great, and we got loads of good feedback. What we didn't do is keep that pattern going, so that's a lesson for us, because people move and they change, and we get a new board in, and they've got different views, so we've got to keep that sort of awareness going right through the organisation. And failing fast, obviously, is one of the principles that we're trying to adhere to, which is great, and we're trying to support this. But it's still quite a difficult conversation to go back to a programme board and say, well, we spent some money and we didn't really deliver what we said we were going to deliver, and the idea that we had probably wasn't the best idea, but we did learn a huge amount of stuff, and the programme boards sit there and look at you and go, but you spent all that money and you didn't give us anything for it. So that's still a work in progress. But we are trying to build time in for teams to do innovation and capability building and a lot of learning. They are learning a lot to feed into projects going forward. We're explicitly funding. One thing we did, a really good investment, is we explicitly fund team kick-off weeks. So at the beginning of every phase, the teams go off site for a week, just get to know each other, plan what they're going to do some team building sessions. Really good it sets the team up, doesn't it? And it gives them a lot of grounding going forward. So that's given us a lot of benefits. They do show and tells, which gets early feedback as well. So senior managers shouldn't be surprised about things. And also give people the opportunity to come and speak to teams. We do all sorts of highlighting what the teams are working on. I think that's it for team challenges.
Brings me nicely on to the team challenges. So, yeah, I think certainly one of the big takeouts from is the kick-off week. I think that's paid dividends for the team to be able to get together, plan, get to know each other, agree ways of working, and then come back the following week motivated and ready to hit the road. What we are finding challenging, though, is... Oh, I seem to have gone through me, out of me. I've got the wrong slide deck here. No. Let me just go back to where I am. That's up, yeah. So, effective teams, Agile principles say that they're small teams, 7 plus or minus 2. What we're finding, certainly working with government digital standards and all the roles that are in there, that our standard teams are now around 15 people. So we've got user researchers, UX designers, content designers, product managers, associate product managers, we need to speed up,
Yeah.
Senior product managers, team. So it's getting huge. We want to T-shape people, and roles and responsibilities are becoming very blurred. But is this a bad thing? I don't know. We've set up to communities of practice. That's just starting to bed into the organisation. I think it's fair to say it's still maturing. And we're currently looking at setting up heads of practice and changing our line management to focus on development and upskilling of our people to become more digitally upskilled. But does this work if we want people to be upskilled in a T-shaped role? Hey, we'll find out. We'll maybe come back next year and talk about that. Agile ways of working. So one of the principles of the Agile Manifesto is interaction over documentation, which is great, but boy, does that bring more challenges. What we're finding is that historically, software delivery teams were quite autonomous and developers could just come in and work and code. But now we're finding that they're having to interact with people that they've never had to interact with before. They're having to work outside of their job descriptions, and they're having to do more presenting. And having been an ex-developer, it's just want to come in, do my code, move on. Surprisingly, most of our teams have risen to this challenge, and we are getting some successes out of that because they are getting out there and interacting with other people and then learning and taking that back to the teams. But having lots of conversations can be great, but it can also be very noisy. We have an open plan office, and space in the right layout is a whole presentation in its own right, and we've only got about 10 minutes, so I haven't got time to talk about that. What we've suffered, though, is the fact that people just think that they need to talk and not write things down. And that's great if team members never change, but not so good when new people join the team and nothing is documented. So what we do now insist on is a minimum set of documentation, mostly consisting of reusable assets and decision-making. Because what we're finding is we make a decision, and then in a month's time, a year's time, we think, why did we make that decision? So we're getting better at recording decisions. Still me? Yep. Delivering at pace. We struggle with the ability to deliver fast but build it right. Programs, certainly digital and data programs, want to see value for money early, and this sometimes presents teams with the challenge of delivering at pace but still maintaining the quality of the thing that they're building. Over time, we've accrued technical debt. Some of it's been planned and accepted, and that's great because we know about it. But what we're finding is that some is hidden and unknown outside of the team. So to try and combat this, we now introduce technical and ways of working health checks, which we review with teams, quality assurance reviews, accessibility testing, and a variety of other quality gates. But what we're struggling with is how do we balance all these gates with agility?
So with a transformation program, and especially from a digital point of view, there are different risks that an organisation might need to manage, and we provide a state guarantee to protect the register. Nothing's going to change that, and we have to protect that, which sometimes means we have to put in functionality that to a user may feel like, why do I need to do this? But from an organisation point of view, we need that information. So quite often, if you're using find property information, if you want to go past a certain point, you have to log in, you have to provide details. And to a user, you might be thinking, why do I need this? I'm not paying for anything, I just want to look at something. But from a fraud prevention point of view, we need to know who is looking at our data to prevent. We've got fraud patterns that we're trying to, to build into our systems. We are looking at the moment at ID verification solutions. If you look out in the market, there's hardly any that would be able to support the needs of Land Registry at the moment. Verify is a government one. You can verify a single user, but you can't verify companies. So companies use a lot of our data. So we're struggling with that at the moment, which is we're working through that. Go on to recruitment. So recruitment very quickly is a big challenge for us. So the software delivery teams are based in Plymouth. Plymouth's beautiful, just like Falmouth, but transport links aren't great. Finding digital specialists to come and work in Plymouth is a big challenge. Junior roles we don't really have a problem with because we've got a university. We take quite a lot of people from the university. We're placement students. We have a massive apprenticeship program that we're running now. But digital specialist roles are providing us with a bit of a challenge. We're having to recruit people in different offices, which means co-location of a team is proving difficult, but we've got tools like Skype and things like that we can use. We are also, because we're a government department, restricted on pay that we can offer people, so that is a bit of a stumbling block as well. So we have to sort of say, come to work in Plymouth because we've got the sea and the beach and the moors when it's not raining. So recruitment continuing to be an issue. Brings us on to capacity to scale. Obviously, if recruitment's a problem, we need to still get people in to help us. We have a number of delivery partnerships with companies outside of Land Registry. That brings its own challenges, trying to blend teams together so that they can deliver, but they've got different cultures that you've got to try to work through. We also have tried to give work to one of our delivery partner teams, and that proved quite successful. So they were based outside of Plymouth, but we still need to have the interaction between the teams. So lots of work going on in the delivery partnership scaling. We're trying to make sure that our delivery partners feel part of us, so they're part of the communities as well, and that provides us with the capability building that we're trying to do as one of the goals of the programme. So brings us on to our last point, which I think we can very quickly get it in. Comms is a nightmare. So trying to find a way of communicating what we're doing internally to our staff is an issue, because some people like it in writing, some people like it in roadshows. So we're trying to do lots of different ways of communicating what the digital transformation is about. Caseworkers have a fear that if you automate everything, we're all going to be out of a job. So we have to disillusion them from that. We have to say, no, you don't want to do this rubbish stuff. What you want to do is this really exciting stuff over here. So it's not about getting rid of people, it's about changing the role and the job that they're doing. So we got just time to do the story.
I'm going to read it quickly. So there's a story, and it's not Land Registry, I hasten to add, but it's a great story of how miscommunication in a company, and I have to read it, I have to get it in, so I'm going to go fast. So the mail from CEO to managers. Today at 11 o'clock there'll be a total eclipse of the sun. This is when the sun disappears behind the moon for 2 minutes. As it's something that cannot be seen every day, we'll allow some time for employees to view the eclipse in the parking lot. Staff should meet in the lot at 10 to 11 when I will deliver a short speech introducing the eclipse and giving some background information. Safety goggles will be made available at a small cost. So the manager then sends on to the department head. Today at 10 to 11, all staff should meet in the car park. This will be followed by a total eclipse of the sun, which will appear for 2 minutes. For a moderate cost, this will be made safe with goggles. The CEO will deliver a short speech beforehand to give us all some information. This is not something that can be seen every day. So that goes on to the floor manager. The CEO will today deliver a short speech to make the sun disappear for 2 minutes in the form of an eclipse. This is something that cannot be seen every day, so staff will meet in the car park at 10 or 11. This will be safe if you pay a moderate cost. So that goes on to the supervisor. 10 or 11 staff are to go to the car park where the CEO will eclipse the sun for 2 minutes. This doesn't happen every day, and it will be safe, and as usual, it will cost you. So finally, this is what the staff get. Some staff will go to the car park today to see the CEO disappear. It is a pity that this doesn't happen every day. So it's quite funny, but it does show, if you get comms wrong, how challenging that can be and how the message gets lost. Thank you. That's the end of our presentation, and sorry it was sped up a bit at the end.